I'm Carey Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carey Stinson, and this is Purple Roads. Welcome to Purple Roads. My name is Carey Stinson, and as always, I'm thrilled you're here. A brand new season of Purple Roads. The fan requests have been so great. I love doing this, and I just love hearing these stories from all these wonderful people that worked in the children's universe. So here we go. Today's a really cool episode. This is Jon Paul Burkhart. Jon Paul and I have a little background because he was an actor in Dallas, and now he's an actor in LA. But he did a lot of work on Barney when I was there. So I love talking to Barney people. I know you love hearing Barney stories. So we're going to find out what it was like on the Purple set with Jon, and then also see what he's doing now. Here he is, Jon Paul Burkhart. Hey, Jon, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm doing great. I know, and I appreciate it because it's a little earlier in the morning for you than it is for me.
Couple hours, yeah. But it's good. It's good to get up, get started. Yeah.
Get the blood flowing.
Yeah, no, there's really nothing like a hot cup of coffee and a good shower to wake you up. Yeah.
Yeah, I had that cup of coffee too, but before we started this. So welcome to Purple Roads.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
This is going to be a lot of fun because you were in Dallas. We'll kind of get a little bit of your history, but you started in Dallas.
It is.
Actually, Richardson, which is where I grew up as well. We talked
Very
about,
nice. Yeah.
you're a Berkner Ram, and I was a JJ Pierce Mustang.
That's right. Go Rams. Go Mustangs.
Absolutely. And then our paths crossed with this little or big purple dinosaur.
Yeah.
And then you've continued from there. So let's kind of start your story off. How did you get into acting and work your way to that purple set?
Okay. Well, I I started singing actually when I was just really tiny. I always sang. My dad always sang, and I went to we would sing together in church. We started singing together in church at Prestonwood Baptist. If you remember that.
I do.
It kept moving, and now I think it's in a huge complex. But back when it was just smaller church, yeah. And we used to sing together, and then as I got older, I would do music competitions, and eventually I started doing musicals. Actually, I always played baseball and sports, and then one summer I got an offer to be in Little Abner, and I did it, and I never played sports again. I just kept doing theater, and which is a sport in its own. And
You just
yeah,
kind of
and then
got the bug from that.
I did. I loved it, but honestly, I kept doing musicals because I loved to sing. And so then I got into junior high and high school, and I was doing music competitions and lots of musical theater, and then eventually I went to SMU and I studied opera for a couple of years, but I missed doing theater. And to be perfectly honest, I was not that good of an actor because I just always sang, and I did musicals, and I had a bad habit of conducting myself while I sang. It was just oof. And so I ended up transferring to the University of Oklahoma to study musical theater, and I did, and I started doing plays there and really working on becoming an actor, a good actor, and I think I did. And so when I left the University of Oklahoma, I came back to Dallas for. I was originally planning to move right out to LA, and I got a couple of jobs, and I got a job working for the Shakespeare Festival of Dallas, touring schools in the mornings and in the early afternoons, doing Shakespeare and teaching classes, which, I mean, it was a really nice paying job for right out of college as an actor. And then I worked at the legendary Pocket Sandwich Theater, and so I decided to stay in Dallas. I got my equity card, worked at a lot of the theaters in town, Theater 3 and Plano Rep, rest its soul. And yeah, and then I started doing commercials, the odd movie, webisodes, industrials, and then I finally was like, okay, I'm doing okay here. I guess I should try LA. So I my best friend had already moved to LA. She's an editor, and I decided to move to LA, and I did. And I was going to try it for a year, but after, I don't know, a couple of months, I was like, I really like it here. It fits me really well, and I've been here for a little over 15 years.
Wow.
And yeah, I work on I've been on a lot of TV shows. The last show I was on was 911 911, not the Lone Star one, the original one.
Right.
And yeah, and I also produce films. I started producing short films in 2012, and it eventually graduated to features. And yeah, and now we're working on our third feature now, and I'm still acting. I actually just got cast in a play. So as soon as we hang up, I'm going to start memorizing all of these lines.
That's fascinating. And let's talk about that a little second, because explain what it's like to go from from opera to theater, and now what we've got, right, with webisodes, as we're doing a podcast here online, you've got commercials, TV shows, films. Those experiences are completely different in so many areas. I did that with Barney, and I did a lot of live shows, and then I'm doing the TV show, and it's a complete different experience. What was it like for you, and what is that like to prepare doing these different things?
Well, like I said, when I was growing up, I was doing all these singing competitions. So when it came time to come to college, I just thought, oh, I'll major in in music and singing. Which when
Right.
I went to SMU, it was an opera. It was you study opera, and I enjoyed singing in foreign languages, but I I really missed singing other styles, and they're very unforgiving. They don't let you do anything else except arias and art songs, and
Right.
so yeah, the experience for me from moving from opera, like I never really got into the opera. I actually got in trouble with the one or two operas or operettas that I was in at SMU because I would, I would always get cast as the funny person, and I would really go for it. And the opera professors would be like, "Oh, no, 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 you can't ham it up." And I'm like, "But I got the most applause." So when I decided to really pursue becoming an actor, it was totally different because I had the drive and I had the energy and I guess the artistic understanding, but I had never really nurtured that talent. I had just gotten into shows because I could sing. And so it really I really had to work to become a good actor. And as you know, you have to continue working throughout your life, almost like like my parents do real estate, and my mom's constantly in continuing education classes and stuff, because you have to stay sharp and stay on top of what you're doing. um so yeah, so when I came back to Dallas, I was an actor, and I felt very confident, and yeah, but I kept learning. The And I always did theater, but when I moved out to LA, I immediately just started auditioning for theater and musicals and plays. And I played Amos Hart in Chicago a few times, and I got cast in Amos almost immediately when I moved out here and did that. Got to work with Katrina Lenk, who now has a Tony Award and is all over Broadway, and she was our Velma Kelly. We actually shared a dressing room, very, very small theater. And yeah, it was a great show. And then I did the last 5 years, and I just did theater show after theater show. And then around 2012, uh, I was a part of an artist collective group. It was writers and directors and actors, and we all just support each other, met once a month, and like did a video challenge and talked about our own work, not like what we're auditioning for, but like what we're trying to do. And I brought in a story, and they convinced me to write it as a short film, and I did, and we produced it, and it was I never expected to love it so much, like producing something, creating, like hiring all the people and doing all of that, putting it all together, and I just loved it. And so I kept doing it. I found a partner I really liked who also wanted to do it, and so we just kept producing film after film, and then it took the place of doing theater. I didn't realize it was doing that, but both are very time consuming. So as soon as I started producing films, the theater just kind of shrank. And yeah, so I've only recently been able to get back into it, which I'm very excited about, because there's nothing like being on stage. But yeah, and now I'm trying to balance after the pandemic. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did hear about that.
Yeah, it was a thing. But after the pandemic and we all came back, it's been a struggle for everybody for just every reason under the sun. But for actors, it was a struggle. We've had to learn how to really get good at self tapes and learn all these new skills and adapt. And yeah, and so now I'm balancing producing and acting in theater, and it's good.
Well,
Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer to your
no,
question.
that's why this show is an hour, because it gives people time to really tell the story. I wanted to hear the stories. I've met so many actors and worked with so many actors over the year. This is what I love, and so this is kind of where Purple Roads came from, is to be able to hear these stories because they're fascinating. I'm curious, what is it like when you're saying like you did 911? What is it like going in where there's already a cast established and you're coming in on a one episode? Is that a difficult thing to do where everyone knows each other and you're coming in right
I
on
have
scene?
I have never had a bad experience. I've had a or a I've had one sort of weird experience, but but no, I pretty much I've had just really good experiences. I mean, like coming into 911, it's a Ryan Murphy production, and I've been on a couple of Ryan Murphy productions, and they're so great. Everyone is so nice and respectful and does their job fantastically. And so walking onto that show, all the actors were very welcoming, uh, cast and crew. But you are there, you're a guest. And so, I've kind of learned that when you go on to a new show as a guest and you're just there for a day or two, you kind of not keep to yourself, but you let everyone do their job, kind of hang in your trailer, have lunch with people if you can, but kind of keep to yourself. But 911 was interesting because we were still in the thick of all the pandemic restrictions and masks and testing, and so nobody ate lunch together, and everyone had their food brought to their trailer, and nobody got together, nobody hung out together. And I had one other experience before that with COVID too, and it was so different because usually everyone just kind of hangs and everyone talks, and yeah, but yeah, no, I like coming on to shows as a guest. It's fun, and like I said, I've always had a good time, and I've always been treated with respect. The few times that I don't know, I wouldn't say I've had like a bad experience, but like the few times that I've had a different experience is just because they were running behind, or they had a lot of shots to do that day, and it was like, okay, today we focus, and it was, and but you come into that energy and you're like, oh, okay, I'll be in my trailer, come get
Right,
me when you need me.
right.
I'll be in here in makeup. I'm here. Just let me know. Um, Also, 911 was interesting because I had three scenes, and my first two scenes were the very first two shots of the day, and it was a very long day. And then my third scene was the very last scene of the day, and I was a guest, so I wasn't allowed to leave. So I just had to sit in my trailer, and it was in Santa Clarita, which is it's a great neighborhood, but it's far, and we were in a complex that had no Wi-Fi and like no internet. And I brought my lap or my iPad to watch stuff, but nothing because there was no internet, and they were like, "Sorry, we should have said brought a book," and I was like, "I did." Um, but yeah, so that was a long day. But I remember the actor that I worked with for most of my scenes. After we got done with the first two, he was like, "All right, well, I think I got an Amazon package. I'm gonna go get it off my porch and wash my car." And he was like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, I'm not allowed to leave." But yeah, 911 was a really fun show. Great people, great people.
It's that those things are just crazy. And and we'll talk about it here in a second. But we dealt with that with Barney. The amount, I mean, I don't know what standard, I'm going to show like 911, how many days they have to shoot. We had 2.5, and we're
Mhm.
working with kids who can only work so long. And so sometimes we're in early trying to shoot before the kids start the clock. And then when the kids, when they're done, they're done. So we're always staying late too because of that, because you try to shoot with the kids as quick as possible. Um, let's talk a little bit about Barney.
Okay.
So how did all that happen? Because I think people are fascinated to learn that. I mean, Barney was the big show in Dallas at the
Yeah,
time. And
yeah.
so kind of everyone that was in Dallas acting at that time or producing a crew or something was probably on the show at one point or another.
Yeah, it was always interesting to be in that holding room, which was so nice. I mean, it was like a kid's playroom, but it was very nice. And you're not always in a nice holding room. And but you'd always run into actors that you knew that you'd auditioned with or been in shows with. It's like, oh, hey, how are you? Good. Yeah, no, yeah, I'm here today. Um, no, Barney was great. I loved Barney. Um, yeah. I had uh, a casting director friend. Her name was BJ Evans, and she moved from I think it was Plano Repertory Theater. It was either that or the Dallas Theater Center. I can't remember, but she moved from there to Barney to do casting. And as soon as she did, she was like, "Hey, I'm doing this. Can I call you and offer you work?" And I was like, "Yes, please." So she started offering me background work, and I did a lot of that. And then one day I was doing background, and I don't remember what happened to the actor that was playing a teacher that day, but they had to switch to me. They needed a new teacher, and so they put me in this featured role, and it was a lot of fun. And I apparently did a good job because after that they did still call me for background, but they also called me for featured work, which was really fun. Um, a school teacher, a mailman. I did several very strange roles. There was one day that we spent out at a park, and it was all in. Everyone was in costume, and there was a.
Was that
It was
them?
like it was like a fair day, and it was a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Yes, out in Frisco.
Yes,
Yeah, I was.
yes,
Yep.
yeah. You were like, I was there. I was Barney.
I was there because that's one of the craziest. That was a crazy video that we did out there.
Yeah, that was a day. That was a day. I remember that. Gosh, that was so long ago now, but yeah. So I really enjoyed being on Barney. And yeah, like you said, I remember when my friend got the job, I think my first reaction was, "Wait, Barney shoots in Dallas?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I want to work on the show." And then I remember when I showed up, you show up to this, it's like a business complex.
Yeah.
And you're like, "This is a studio?" And then you go in, you're like, "Oh, this is a studio." But it's kind of hidden.
It was very hidden, and it had 3 studios in it.
Yeah.
Plus, they did all
And they
the
were
editing.
nice.
They did everything was done there. It was its own complex, and no one would have any clue that it was there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it was because they started out in Allen, then they went to Las Colinas, and this was kind of the first time that they had the whole everything. It was
Oh,
all
that's
one. Yeah, it was really cool. And then we did those videos like you're talking about, that Frisco one. Oh my goodness. Because we had live animals. I don't know. Do you remember that? They had elephants and all of that kind of stuff.
I do. I do. It was quite the day.
And what did you do on that episode? What did you do in that video?
Um, on that video, I lied. Um, I, as an actor, you're told, if you're asked if you have a certain skill, you say, "Oh, yes, I can do that," and then you learn how to do it. I had lied and said that I had experience on stilts. I had not, but I felt confident that I could do it. It is a skill that you need to have. And so very quickly after watching me futz with the stilts for, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, they just came up to me and were like, we're gonna have somebody else do this. And I was like, okay, great, great. Because by that time I was like, I can't do this. I'm gonna fall, or someone's gonna have to hold me the whole time. So yeah, so I guess I said I learned my lesson not to lie.
Well, I love that. Now, I don't know if it's a lie and more of a fib, I think, but I have done that so many times. Um, and for me, it worked out. I've told this story on here, but I had no idea how to dance. Well, I'd never been in a costume. And then I didn't know how to dance when they said, "Can you dance?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I had to go to my mother, who had to teach me. She was a professional dancer, teach me all the moves. And then even, doing Barney on that TV show, they'd say, "Can you roller skate?" Sure. And I every time, sure, I could do it. They're like, "Oh," I think they knew that when I would say it that way, that I didn't really know what I was doing, but I always made it work out. But it's exactly that. It's exactly, you kind of have to throw yourself out there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, you got to get the jobs. You got to get the jobs. Um, that's funny. I'm not a dancer. That's something as I continue to do. I love musicals and I love to sing, but I've never been a good dancer at all. And so it's prevented me from getting to another stage of callbacks a lot of the time because they hear me sing, they watch me read, and they're like, "Great, go to the dance call," and I'm like, ah. Um, but yeah, yeah. Actually, I've gone to a couple of, or several actually. Like they have a couple of studios here, and they audition for, especially uh, shows that are going to go to Broadway that are being workshop first. They'll audition for them here too. And I went to several. My agent got me several, and I always had to go to the dance call. And I would, I'd go in, I'd sing, and they'd be like, "Okay, nice," and I'd read, and be like, "Okay, nice," and like, "Go to the dance call," and I'm like, "Oh." And that was always where I'd get cut. And I remember the last one I went to, I went in and they wanted me to dance first. So I just went up to the little table and I said, "Hi, I was wondering if I could sing for you guys first." And they're like, "No, no, no, the dance call. And actually they've already started. You need to get in there." And I was like,
Oh,
"Oh, okay." So I started in there, and as I'm walking in, one of my friends, Nikki, who is an amazing dancer, is walking out. And I said, "Oh," and she was like, "Oh, are you auditioning?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "You need to get in there. Like, I just gave up." And I was like, "Oh." So I walked in and I stood in the back and I see the choreographer's assistant teaching the choreography, and it's complicated. And I see the choreographer standing against the piano, and he's just kind of looking at everybody. And I'm in the back and I'm watching people trying to catch up and doing the moves, and he catches my eye and he's just kind of watching me like, "What are you doing?" And I was in there for maybe 5 minutes, and I finally just like I caught his attention again, and I just went, "Bye," and he just went, "Yes, goodbye." And I walked out, and I walked to the table. I was like, "Is there any way I can sing for you guys?" And they were like, "No, you have to be a really good dancer." And I was like, "All right, bye." And I left, and I emailed my agent, and I was like, "Please never send me on another audition where I have to dance because I'm not going to book it."
I love that, but I love the fact that you went and tried. You did it, whether it worked
Did
out or
try.
not. I mean, I've been in those situations, um, and it's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, auditioning it's everything. It's good, it's bad, it's terrifying, it's fun, it's exhilarating, every emotion. It's yeah. But I don't know. I usually enjoy auditions. I have started to enjoy the self tapes. I have to admit, I have. I didn't at first because I really enjoyed being a guy from theater. I love going into the room and performing for one or two people and a camera. It's still performing, and I I still miss that, but I've really started to enjoy the self tape experience.
And now, is that pretty much all they're doing? Is the
Yeah.
self-tape now?
Yes. Um, there's starting to be more and more commercial auditions, which are live, which are great. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think they're bringing in people for, for testing for bigger roles for series regulars and like big reoccurring roles. I think. I don't know. But for, the one day guest stars and co-stars and stuff, I think they're 95% on tape. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing what COVID did. This was in a studio. When I first started doing Purple Roads, we were doing it in a studio in Dallas. And we only made so many episodes before COVID hit. And all of a sudden, like most people, I'm figuring out how to use Zoom and how to do this. And here we are.
Yeah, I had never used Zoom before the pandemic, and now I yeah.
I know it's crazy, and you have to. It's a kind of different mentality. I mean, here you are right live on camera, and you just hit record, and here we go. Here we go.
Yeah,
It's fascinating.
yeah.
It's fascinating. So, what was it like? I'm really curious from your perspective. I'm working on Barney, where you're dealing with kids and costume characters. It's a completely different experience in a lot of ways.
It is. Yeah. I mean, uh I love kids. Kids are great. They're so much fun. They say the strangest things. And and I always did enjoy working with kids, especially when I got to play I played a parent several times, and I always enjoyed playing the parents and getting to interact with the kids. And I was always, well, for the most part, I was impressed with the most of the kids' ability to, know what cut means. And then when they hear back to one, they're like, okay, I'll go back to one. Like most of them was like just little professional actors. And I was like, oh wow, I am learning from these kids. Um, it was a great experience. I mean, everyone was so nice. I mean, it was now that I've had a lot more experience, like I can look back and see that I mean, it was a very professional set. Everyone was, yeah, doing their job. There's not a lot of, there's really no play around. I mean, everyone's having a good time, but it's work, and everybody's trying to get that day and get every shot in the can before the kids have to go home.
Well, yeah, and I'd never been, when doing as you know in theater, once the show starts, it starts and it doesn't stop till it's over.
Mm,
There is no cut, there is nothing else. So I toured for 5 years where if someone stumbled on a line or someone tripped or anything happened, we just got up and we just kept going.
mm,
And so all of a sudden now I'm doing this. Um, and there's cuts and there's kids and there's kind of a lot of pressure from the adults on that set to not mess up because
mm.
some of those kids are really young. And
Yeah.
and so if they hit it, the last thing you want to do was be the reason why we had to restart over because of one of the adult actors.
Yeah. 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 I will say it is funny to go back to a previous question.
Yeah.
Being on set on a lot of TV shows, and doing scenes with the series regulars and stuff. Especially shows that are in their like fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh season. It's funny how a lot of actors have just really gotten into, okay, I've got this big scene coming up. I got to look at these lines, and they've looked at them. They know it, but it's not completely there. And I always just think that's funny because actors that have been on the show for so long, they're very comfortable, and they know that they're there, and it's us guest stars that have to be pitch perfect on every line. And so I always, we make sure we are. And then, it's the series regulars who are like, oh, what is that again? Could you read that to me? Could you read? Okay, let's go again. Let's go again. And I was like, I can't do that. I will be replaced.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they're not going to replace you. They won't replace me.
Right. Oh, it's so true.
I
So
did, I did a I'm not going to say which show
Sure.
because they asked me not to.
Yep.
But I did a sitcom, a comedy sitcom once. Great show. It was on the air several seasons, and I showed up that day, and it ended up being, it was a Friday. It was the final episode of the season. It was the last day of shooting for them, and they were done. And they had just finished a 14-page scene where the camera, it was all one take, and the camera was just going around a dinner table. And so they had just spent hours on that, and then they came and had to do this, this one funny scene with me.
Right.
They hadn't looked at their lines at all. And they realized they didn't have many lines, so they're like, okay, the scene will be easy, it won't be much. But the scene depended on comedic timing. Like, it was all very quick, like, And they came in and immediately like figured it out, and and they were so sweet. They were so nice and funny, but they almost immediately got very frustrated because they realized they didn't know their lines, and they kept having to, they kept calling cut and everything. And finally they leaned into me and they were like, "We are so sorry. Please don't ever tell anyone that we did not know our lines. We're not like this. It is the last shot. It is the last day of this season. We're tired. We want to go home." And I was like, "No, it's fine. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here. I will help you." And it ended up being great. It ended up being great. And they were both really funny. It was a good day, but that was a fun day. Realizing that even stars can reach their limit and be like, I'm done. I need a break.
Yeah, it's for Barney, we'd do 3 shows a month. We do 3 shows and then take a week off, and then and for the costume characters, we're in every episode, so the kids rotate. So the first, when we started, so this was the new set of Barney and Friends when I started on it, and we went at least a year straight because they had to shoot 2 seasons right off the bat so that they could kind of catch up and have something, and then they could slow the
Oh,
process down while there was
yeah.
something airing. But once they want a show, they want it as quick as possible. And so I mean, it's like being shot out of a cannon. It's just it, you know, and
Yeah.
and every people coming in and going out, and it's a crazy world. And on that show, I mean, you're in the costume pretty much a good part of the whole day. And they used to laugh at me because when we take breaks, I'd always kind of hide out a little bit. They'd find me around the building. I could get a little longer break, because once you're in, you're in.
So wait, did you have you? I'm assuming you have, but have you ever toured with Barney?
I did. I toured for 5 years.
Okay. Did you ever know Leslie Allen?
Oh my goodness gracious, that name is really familiar, and I apologize.
She was a dino wrangler on one of the tours years and years ago, and she loved doing it. It was she's a stage manager now. She's
Okay.
stage managing the Beetlejuice tour,
Oh wow.
and yeah, she's doing great. But one of her jobs getting started and coming up was dino wrangler on one of the tours.
I'm trying to think which one that would have, because I did the first 2. So
Mm.
I did Radio City, the live show, and then I did Barney's Big Surprise and Musical Castle. And then that's when I came to do the TV show. So that, I think that's when because you were doing, what years were you doing all this, Barney?
It's like 2003, 2004.
I came in, I
Yeah.
guess that was 2001, from the road. So I did 5 years on the road and then came in and did the TV show. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, it's just funny when names, and it's such a small world.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Even here in LA, it's funny what a small world it is.
Because I
Yeah.
was talking to Hillary the other day, and she goes, "Do you know John Paul Burkhart?" Like, it's just one of those. And then she's telling me about you, and I'm like, "Oh my God, we've obviously worked together and probably don't realize we work
Yeah.
together." And then we were talking about like Brian Mack and some of those people that mutual friends from that Barney world.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I've done not a ton, but I've done several costumed or mascot roles, whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
myself. I did I played Jasper the dog for the Chuck E. Cheese
Okay.
music videos that shot in Dallas for 2 or 3 years, and it was a lot of fun. Um, I was Jasper. He had a dog head and hands and feet, but regular clothes. And the other characters were very jealous of me because I had normal clothes on and they all had fur. And they were always so hot. Um, but because of that and because of Barney, because my agent, when I moved out here, my agent would if there was a costume role or something, he would say, this actor, my actor, he's been on Barney, and he would never say like what, because I never did costume work on Barney, but he was like he was on Barney, and so if it was costume role, they'd usually call me in,
Right.
and I'd get in the room and they're like, who did you play on Barney? Did you play this? Did you play that? And I'm like, no. They're like, all right, audition. And I've been lucky. I've done a few costume roles on TV. I played a singing gorilla on a Disney show called Dog with a Blog, which is a
Oh,
kid show
sure.
about a dog with a blog.
Right.
And then I was on Parks and Recreation, and I played a singing horse. And I had two scenes, one with Amy Poehler and Aziz Ansari, and then one with Nick Offerman. Um, and the scene with Nick Offerman, uh, he's he's very funny because the only time I got to spend with him was actually on set during the scene, and he doesn't react to me. I come in, I hop in, and I hand him a balloon after I sing to him, and we did it a few times, and he just would sit there and stare at me and his character.
Right.
After we did it 2 or 3 times, they called cut, and and I was like, so I leaned in my horse outfit. And he said, I want you to know I think you're very funny, but I'm not supposed to laugh at you. So I'm not laughing at you. And I was like, okay. So I plopped back. And then the director came in and whispered something to him. And then they called action. I came back in, clopped back in. I did my thing, sang my song, handed him the balloon. And without changing his face at all, he just reached up and popped my balloon. And I have a reaction. I have a which is real because I had no idea he was going to do that.
Right.
And that's the one that they chose, and it is really funny. It was actually a meme for a while. I was a meme,
There
and we were just popping the balloon and see me shudder. But it was, yeah, it's stuff like I enjoy doing costume work, but it is funny how you really can't move a lot. Like when I was the horse, I had this giant back part of me that nobody was in,
right.
and somebody had to pick it up if I was to move.
Right.
So I just hung out by the craft food table pretty much the whole day because I couldn't move, and I didn't want to go back to my trailer because I couldn't fit in my trailer.
Right.
Um, yeah. And throughout the course of the day, like it was a very well made costume, but it was made for one day. So
Right.
towards the end of the day, the legs started buckling under themselves a lot, and they're like, "Okay, we got to finish this. The horse is dying. The horse is dying." Um, and I ended up on that show. I ended up chatting up Chris Pratt. He was on that show, but I didn't know who he was because I didn't watch the show, and I thought he was a grip. And I always enjoy talking to crew members because I don't know, there's a little less, feels like a little less pressure. I don't, and so I chatted him up quite a bit, and then a couple of months later, the show, my episode airs, and I'm like, oh, that guy was on the show. And then like a year later, he's in the Marvel universe, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought he was a grip or an electric. So yeah, so because of Barney, I've done quite a few costume things, which has been really fun. And I still get called into them. I just got called in for a commercial for a costume thing, but I don't remember when it was. I didn't get it.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I did. I had to do it was a TV guide cover. with Maria Shriver.
Oh, wow.
And so they flew me to LA to do this thing. And so we're doing this shoot, and I'm not talking. There's no voice there, it's just me. And all of a sudden, she takes the mouth, sticks her head in, and goes, "Who's in here?" And there I am, literally looking at Maria Shriver. And I'm like, I'm Carey. And she's like, "Nice to meet you." And then we ended up having lunch, and it was a very normal thing afterwards. But it's the most bizarre experience I've ever gone through, is to have Maria Shriver stick her
Who's
head.
in there?
Who's in there?
Wow.
Nice as she could be. And then when we had lunch, she was just awesome. But it's got to be a weird thing for them, right? That here's this big purple dinosaur, and no one's talking. It's just, there he is. So yeah, it's a bizarre thing. I'd never been in a costume before, and
Oh,
got an audition and said I could do it, and I figured it out really quick, because that's what we do, right? You
yeah.
either do it or you don't. Um, and I've told the short of that story is that I originally didn't get it because they picked someone that had acting experience, and then that person asked for the first 3 weeks off, and they were like, "Well, could you do it? And then maybe we'll need a second person." And I just got really good at it, and kind of never gave the job up, which I think is what you do, right? You
Yeah, that's the dream.
next thing you know, there I am doing it. While we got time, I want to talk about producing and where that came from and what you're doing with that. Kind of a very different than what we're talking about, because you've done some horror films. Is that
I have, yeah.
something different?
I was I was born on Halloween,
Oh,
1977. And yeah, so I've always loved horror films and scary films. Growing up, all my friends loved to come to my house because my parents let me rent anything on the horror shelf. They were just like, it's fine. He knows it's fake. He thinks it's funny. And yeah, so I've always loved horror films, and I don't know if I always wanted to make them, but I probably did. And so when we started making short films, we made two very socially conscious short films that did really well in festivals, like really, really well, and won a bunch of awards. And so we were like, I guess we should keep doing this. So me and my then partner David Gunning, we started producing short films. And I actually I think I he was in several of them. I was I didn't start acting in the films I was producing until, I don't know, the sixth or seventh one, because producing it's a lot of work. Um, but then when we started, I think it was 2017. Um, we met a writer named Jimmy O. He is a horror writer for an Arrow in the Head. I'm only going to, I think that's it. And he reviews horror stuff, and he knew a writer and said, "Hey, there's this script. I think you should read it." And so I read it, and I was like, "This is fantastic. We could produce this for a very low budget." So we did. We raised the money. It cost us, I think it was $165,000. We shot it in Nacona, Texas. Do you know where Nacona is?
Where is Nakona?
It's north of Dallas, north. I want to say northeast. But once you start making turns on those roads out in the middle of nowhere, Texas, it's hard to know where you are.
But it's like
But
above. It's outside of like Rockwall and Rowlett, and
oh, no, it's the
it's
other.
way further east or west.
North. It's more north. It's, I would say, about 30 minutes from the Oklahoma border.
Oh, okay, like Sherman,
Yeah,
Denison, and all of that.
yeah. But then to the west.
West, to the west. All right.
Anyway, we found a location there. We had a friend. His family owned a 1,000-acre cattle ranch, and we had reached out to them, being like, "Hey, we're shooting a movie. This is our budget." and they let us shoot there, and the town was really great. The gentleman who owned the cattle ranch ended up not charging us at all. Um, he did very well for himself, so it's fine. But and then the town, most of the locations ended up not charging us. They enjoyed having us there. They enjoyed us pumping what 65, 70 grand into their economy. The restaurants were great, and actually our first film, it was called Sick for Toys, and it's a like a Christmas themed horror movie, and we shot it in January, and we had made plans in November. I think it was November to shoot there, and so we'd made all the deals, and we asked, because there's lots of shots of the town. It's supposed to be Christmas, and the town kept their Christmas decorations up in their main street, and all the restaurants and everything all kept their Christmas decorations up until we were done shooting in like the end of January. Like it was such a great experience. I introduced several of my friends from like up north who had never had Tex-Mex before. I introduced them to Tex-Mex, and they just thought it was the most amazing thing ever. I was like, well, yeah. We had a great time. We had a great time. We ended up shooting that and finishing it, and we got it out in, I think, 2019. I think maybe 18, and it does well. It got into several great horror festivals. I was in that one,
Okay.
which I still am not sure if I would ever be in a feature film that I produced again, because that was I never slept. I never slept. And I was always concerned about how my character would be, because I was always tired and I never had enough time to look at my lines and to work on character. And but it got decent reviews. I got decent reviews, so I think it all came together well. And hey, it makes money. It's out there on Amazon and Tubi and all the fun sites. Yeah, and so when we finished that, um, our first AD on the film, Rudy, uh, he really enjoyed working with us, and when he came to it debuted or premiered in Dallas at the Dallas International Film Festival, and he brought a friend to see it, and then afterwards his friend approached us and said, hey, he didn't say it like this, but he basically said, hey, I've got lots of money. I think this was a great film. I'd like to, invest in a movie. Can I invest in your next movie? And we were like, absolutely. Do we have a next movie? And so we had an idea. I hired a writer. My friend Chloe Sky, I hired her to write our next feature, and we wrote that, and we submitted it to him. We submitted a plan. We did all the work. We wrote the budget. We did everything, and then we presented it with a budget of 350 grand, and we shot it out in the desert in Barstow. I got to hire one of my oldest actor friends from Dallas, Clayton Ferris. It's always fun to get to hire friends. Um, and we hired some really great actors. Do you know Paul Taylor, Paul Thomas Taylor, Paul T. Taylor?
One name very familiar.
He's a Dallas actor. He was on Barney 2 a few times, but he's great. He's a Dallas actor, and he's been in 2 of our films, and so we got to hire him, and we flew him out, and yeah, and that film does really well. It's a horror comedy, and it's pretty funny. It's definitely R-rated. And well, Sick for Toys it's probably R, but mainly just for subject matter.
Right.
You know, our second film is definitely R. But it was a lot of fun. And like I said, I've always loved horror films. I loved getting to put together both those films, getting to hire the FX people and the say yes and no to things. Mainly yes, because you hire the right people, and you're just always like, oh, that's great, more of this, more of this. And I've been very lucky to work with a great team. I've worked with our cinematographer Ryan Burbell for four, I think 5 films maybe, and he's fantastic. And I'm actually now producing with him. We're working on a third feature that we're going to shoot in Texas, in Travis County.
Okay.
Our director is there, who's also producing, and me and Ryan are producing, and it's a great movie. It's called The Twilight Show, and it is not horror.
Oh.
It is more in the realm of romantic comedy, but it's not a true romantic comedy. It's I guess it's just kind of the closest genre. But it's a great story. We just started reaching out to name talent.
Oh.
So yeah, our casting director just started reaching out to see if we can get a name actor in one of the lead roles. So stay tuned for that.
That's got to be exciting though, to be going from, 165 to three. I mean, your budget basically doubled, and now here you are going after named actors.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a really great script, and I know a lot of writers and producers say, "Oh, it's a great script," but like, it's a really special script. It's funny, it's heartfelt, it has great characters, it's very diverse. It's everyone that's read it has just been like, "That's really nice," and we're like, "We know, right?" Um, and actually, it used to be when we first got the script. It was one of the characters is deals with mental illness, and just everything comes flooding out of his mouth. So there was a lot of cursing in the film and in the script, and eventually we've been working on this film for a while, and we had a contact that we were approaching, very conservative potential partner. And so we decided to make the script PG. So we had our writer, we gave him the note, we are like, can you please take out every curse word? And he didn't like it. We weren't really crazy about it, but we're like, well, if we can get it made, then. So he's like, all right, all right. So we did it. And then we all read it separately and agreed that it was a better version.
Wow.
And because we were afraid that it would take away from this character, because it's kind of him. He's gruff, but when we read it, like, our writer Steve really did a great job keeping everything intact, but making it PG. And yeah, so now that is the version that we are producing. It is the better version, and it's much more marketable. It doesn't lose any of its voice, and yeah. So we hope to attach a nice name talent, because you can't get funding without a name attached, and
Right.
you can't get the name attached unless you have funding. So it's very difficult for
Right.
indie producers. Yeah,
But you seem
but
to keep doing it and making films, and I mean,
yeah, we have our casting director Anthony Kraus. He's great, and he's very sweet with us, and he's been working with us on this for a while, and he's very excited to begin reaching out to these names. um yeah, I mean, we're all growing our careers, and we're all stepping up at the same time, and I guess that just really never stops. Like, I guess as actors we kind of think, oh yeah, we have to step up until we make it,
right.
but do you really ever make it? 'Cause you always have to keep going, keep working, keep getting better. And yeah, so, mm,
And I want to finish with that because that's an important part of this. So you have not stopped going, and then you've been in LA for 15 years. What advice do you give to someone wanting to get into this industry? Because you just keep, obviously you've been very successful, and you keep going and keep growing.
I I would say love it. Um, this is probably not great advice, but don't have a backup. Because if you don't have a backup, what else are you gonna do? So, because I'm not trained for anything else. Um, but no, I love what you do. Love it when it's difficult. Love it when it's great. Love it when you're sitting at home and the world is sick, and you're looking forward to getting back to it. And also, if to be an actor, I mean, you're living proof. Like, to be a successful actor, you don't you don't necessarily have to move to New York or LA or Chicago. Especially now, there are so many places. And I feel like a lot of actors feel like they have to, they have to be in New York, they have to be in LA. But, if you move there and you're not happy, the work is going to be reflected in that. And so go where you are to be happy. Liz Michael is fantastic, and she lives in Dallas, does shows there, but she's also a Broadway actress and does films and TV everywhere. And yeah, so work hard and be where it be live where it makes you happy. Yeah, there it is. That would be my. But
I love it.
yeah,
And I can't end this interview because I know people watching this are wondering what that is behind you on that couch. It looks like a
it's a pretzel.
I'm like, that looks like a pretzel back there.
My
I have to
my
ask.
my best friend, who's actually how I know Hillary so well. My best friend Mimi Snow, the editor. She just recently had a baby, and while she was pregnant, I have a pool in my apartment complex, and she lives in a house in Glendale. She has a house, no pool. I have an apartment, pool. And so she would come over while she was pregnant to just get in the pool and move around, and she bought that the first time she came over, and we aired it up. And I think she's been here twice, three times maybe, and we've carried the pretzel down there, but it has lived on my couch waiting to get back in the pool for about 6 months.
That's awesome.
And yeah, this is this is where I self-tape, and yeah, so it's my office, so it can stay dirty. A pretzel can stay on the couch.
I love it. I love it. John, this has just been a pleasure having
Yeah,
you on,
absolutely.
hearing these stories. I love that. I'm gonna the Nick Offerman thing is such a great story. Now I got to look for that meme.
It's me.
Well, and I may have to have you back because if this movie happens, we want to hear about it.
Yeah,
When
especially
this
if we shoot
happens, we
in.
want to hear who you get.
Oh yeah, me too.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And thank you for watching Purple Roads. Remember to keep your eyes, ears, and your heart open, and you'll find your purple road. We'll see you real soon.